Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Well, I think photography, when you use that term, instead of simply saying taking a picture, I think photography is a higher level of taking a picture. It's capturing more than just the visual image. I think a really good photograph evokes a visceral response as well, because it pulls you into the scene, it pulls you into the image. You can get a feel for what the photographer was looking at, thinking, depending on what kind of filters have been applied. All of that wraps up into more than just visual representation, but a chance to feel as if you had been there in the moment.
Podcasting remotely can be a real pain. It's quite challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Zencastr has this all-in-one web-based platform and makes the process really quick and easy. That's the way it should be, right? Just focus on the podcast. So let's talk about the quality and the challenge of recording online. So Zencastr gives crystal clear sound and really nice HD video. I know I don't use it, but it's there. Now, that's not even to mention how easy it is to use. Like even for my guests that aren't even that tech savvy. There's nothing to download. They just click on the link and start recording. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and everything from local recording to automatic post-production in the tool. You don't have to leave your browser to get the episode done. Maybe you want to make podcasts as well. I mean, I think it's a great idea personally. Obviously, I'm running one. I think you should make one too. It's easy. Just do it. I actually use Zencastr. If it sounds great, that's because the platform works. And if it sounds like crap, that's because I've done something wrong. But Zencastr really does give me amazing quality for my guests. If you go to zencastr.com/pricing, blah, 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 and enter this promo code, look, it's already long and confusing, and I'll just make it easier by putting the link and the promo code in the episode description. If you do that, you get 30% off your first 3 months. So that's actually pretty sweet. So look in the description for the link and the promo code, and then you get 30% off to start doing your own podcast. Do it. Go for it. Zencastr. Beautiful. It's interesting how everybody answers it differently.
Uh-huh.
First of all, thank you, Pat Daly, right? Pat Daly?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on the podcast. You know, it's basically I ask people to send me photographs that frame the conversation. So we're going to walk through what your brain said or thinks at that moment. Like, this is important. And we're going to go through that sort of adventure with you.
Awesome.
Super happy to meet you. And I could tell from listeners can't see this, but you have a very nice face and you're surrounded by a very nice bookshelf I could see photographs that are totally capturing my eye, but we're going to ignore what's on the wall and I'm going to go right into what you sent. Okay.
Okay. And by the way, this is a pretty cool concept you've come up with. The whole shooting raw where you don't see any of the pictures until we're talking.
Right.
So I think that's a pretty cool idea.
Well, thank you. So who knows? Hopefully it'll pick up and people will love it. But I know I'm certainly learning tons and I'm meeting amazing people. So here we go. And no idea who you are. It's like, okay, let's jump in.
All right.
What? Okay. So here, okay. I hope listeners will go check out the website and go check out the YouTube or whatever, the Instagram, whatever, all the photographs are going to be there. You, sir, work with drama. Like, this image is amazing. Okay. So it's a photo of you, just basically somebody doing a snapshot. You're wearing some very nice sunglasses, like the Oakley Iridium sort of lenses.
Yep.
You're outside. It's a cloudy day. You're outside. The lighting's very kind of nice and soft. It looks like it's fall. No, it's not fall because behind you it's all quite lush and green. But you're wearing a kind of like a pile fleece or something. So I
Yeah.
don't know if it's cold or not. You're looking right at the photographer. Your face is kind of happy but relaxed. You're not grinning, but you're happy.
Yeah.
And what makes this photograph is just bonkers is on your arm is I'm assuming this is a young eagle.
It's actually a falcon.
What? Oh, okay. So it's a falcon. The falcon isn't looking at the camera. The falcon is looking somewhere else. Who knows why? But it's this beautiful eyes. You can see the yellow of the beak, the yellow of the talons on your arm. This is full on. Okay, listen, you take it away from here because this is amazing.
Okay. All right. So the photo was actually taken in the summer in Ireland. Yeah, summer in Ireland can be...
There you go.
Yeah. This was in 2017. And my eldest daughter had just gotten married, and they were coming back from their honeymoon, and we wanted to do a family thing. We wanted to extend their honeymoon a little bit and get the rest of the family there because we had come to the conclusion a few years prior, or maybe even that year, that experiences were more important to us than stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So rather than giving each other, hey, here's a new shirt or a new sweater.
Here's a falcon on your arm.
Yeah. So I'm a daily. I married a woman with whose maiden name was Talton. My daughters married people named Fitzgerald and Flaherty. And so we've got this huge Irish background going on, at least in terms of our names. And so we just decided we would go do a little pilgrimage to Ireland.
Amazing.
Along the way, my youngest daughter got really into trying to figure out where all of our families originally came from. And she ended up being kind of the tour coordinator. And she found online this falconry place.
Oh, wow.
And it happened to be right next to the cottage. I don't know if you've ever seen the John Wayne movie, A Quiet Man, but it had John Wayne and Maureen O'Hare. No. And in it, it's filmed in Ireland, and they have this beautiful little cottage that they're in. And so it was like a twofer. We could go see the cottage because I always loved that movie, and then we could go do this falconry thing because we're all very much all of our family is very much into animals. We do what we can. My wife works in wildlife rescue as a volunteer. Yeah, we all That's love great. Our critters, and so the chance to go to a place that does not just falconry but also raptor rehab was too good to pass up. So we went there and we got to hold the birds, fly the birds, and it was really awe-inspiring. And I will remember that forever.
That's amazing. My sister, well, thanks for sharing. My sister, as it happens, I grew up in Montreal, and my sister, as she was starting university, I don't know if she was doing an internship or if it was a job, but it was with the sort of the Raptor Center. Part of her work was to go do studies around like the peregrine falcons, because in Montreal in the buildings, and she said, like, she told me these stories about this falcon just basically full on protective of its nest and going at her scalp with these talons and whatever. And I could just, and I never got to participate. So when you're telling me this, it's just reminding me of that stab in the heart of, I missed out on something so amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I would highly recommend doing it and hooking up with your sister if you ever get a chance to do something like that again.
Hooking up with my sister? Hold on. This is not that kind of show, buddy.
All right. Not in that sense, but connecting.
Shooting at Ross. Yes. Well, you're getting a feeling for what kind of person I am. But okay, so here's this falcon. Okay, so and obviously there's the thrill of having it on your arm. And then
Yeah.
there's the memory that you kind of remember.
Yep.
But locked away within those memories are details that are just sitting there that you can pluck, right? That are just
Uh-huh.
sort of sitting there waiting for you to revisit. So let's walk down into that room and try to find a memory or an observation that you haven't visited in a long time. So take a moment and think like, because you know, in a way, photographs are these kind of triggers or windows into the past, but we can gloss over them and say, oh, this memory was X, Y, Z, but there's a whole alphabet behind that you can dive into. So, is there something else about these falcons to convey to people that really stood out?
Okay. I think one is that they are surprisingly stronger than you expect, because when they're clamped
Mm-hmm.
onto your forearm, that's a pretty good
Mm,
grip they got, and that
yeah.
surprised me. And they're also a little heavier than you expect,
Okay.
because you think they're a bird; they're going to be fairly light, but they weigh probably a couple of kilos. So
Okay.
they're a little heftier. Uh, and
Mm-hmm.
then I didn't even think about this until you brought it up, but we go for a walk. We have a guide, and we go for a walk, and we walk. He's got the falcon on his arm, and we're walking through this forest.
Mm.
And every once in a while, he'll launch the bird, and then he's got the little bait that he'll call the bird back with. But it really struck me that this is a cooperative relationship. And by
Sure.
that I
Yeah.
mean, you set a falcon free, you may never see him or her again.
Yeah.
And yet the birds will come back because there's something in it for them.
Uh
And
huh.
and just the fact that this bird of prey, this raptor, would come back, kind of surprised me, because
Mm.
I think, okay, if I'm a falcon, and yeah, I've been hanging out with all the other falcons in the falconry, and I get my chance to take
To
off,
bolt.
yeah,
Yeah.
to bolt, would I do it, or would I be enchanted by the synergy, the
Mm.
cooperation with the humans? And I found that
Nice.
fascinating.
That is a perfect analogy for parenthood. Just
Yes.
the kids are looking at they're like, will I come back to these humans? What's in it for me? Oh, I could get free food. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on to the next photo because yeah, so far this is amazing.
All right.
The man delivers. Boom. Okay, so this photo, what? Oh man, this is like childhood. You're pushing all the right buttons. Okay, so the photo is called Test Pilot. In it is an F-16 Falcon,
Yep.
which I know. It's shot by another sort of accompanying plane
Uh-huh.
jet. That's the who's photographing. Please don't. You're not going to tell me that you're in the cockpit, are you?
I am. That's me.
Oh, dude, no, man, you can't be serious. Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Total crush happening. Okay, so there is this jet, F-16 flying in it. I don't know if it's is that for is that a single or a double? Is that a solo or are you with a two
Yeah, that's
person?
a single seater, so that's an F-16C.
Yeah. Okay. Look, it's over the desert. It looks like the desert or something. You're probably at like I don't know. I'll say 30,000 feet because why not?
Yeah.
Probably I would say 4 kilometers up in the air,
Yeah.
whatever that is. In the back of the plane is a funny looking rig that I don't I have no idea what it is. It's not what you normally see on the back of a jet, but Man, like what is this, Pat? What is this?
All right, so this was me in my first professional career. I was a pilot in the U.S. Air Force, and
Oh man.
eventually I got to go through through test pilot school, and then there I am flying things like this. And one of the really amazing things we got to do was spin testing. We would deliberately go up and put the airplane out of control, because before you send an airplane out to the fleet with any new modification, you want to know how it's going to behave. And if the
Yeah.
modification is bad and makes it more dangerous for the pilots to fly, then they need to know about that and adjust their behavior accordingly. So that thing you see on the back, that rig, that is a spin chute, and it's this
Okay.
big 10-meter diameter chute that is fired by a mortar shell out behind you if you get into a situation where you can't recover the aircraft. And
Got it.
so you're
Got it.
flying along in the cockpit, and you've got this, no kidding, a big red button right in front of you.
Mm,
And if things go bad, you punch the big red button and hope that it solves the problem.
right. It brings you that stability. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And this was over Edwards Air Force Base out in Southern California.
Oh, Pat, what? Okay, so in the population of human beings, let's say there's, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 people who have been in an F-16, who have flown these amazing aircraft. You're one of them.
Yeah,
And if you have seen what my eyes have seen, like, oh man, like that, astounding. And so the one of the one of the pillars of the podcast is, life is a gift, and how do we make every second
it
count?
is.
How did you end up as a? I mean, I can only imagine how many classified and unclassified stories you could tell us. But like, what is the kernel, this at the core of that thing that led you to flying this unbelievable machine?
Okay. I always wanted to be an astronaut. And
Oh,
so
okay.
as a kid, I found out that most astronauts started their professional careers as test pilots, and that most test
Okay.
pilots had started their careers as fighter pilots. And then how do you get to become a fighter pilot? And so I picked what I wanted to do, and then I tried to back up everything to get onto the path where I could do
Uh-huh.
it. And so even in high school, I applied for the United States Air Force Academy. So I went there, and then I went to pilot training in Lubbock, Texas, where I met my lovely wife. And then I went and I flew F-4s over in the Philippines, and
Oh, wow.
that got us our first trip to Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
which was prior to the transition. And I imagine it's a
Oh,
much
okay.
different place
Yeah.
now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then when we came back to that, from that, I got selected for test pilot school. The school itself is a year long, but the payoff is huge. You,
Well, yeah.
yeah, you get to do this kind of stuff.
Oh man. Wow, Pat, like, astounding. You're so this is what screams out to me, is that part of your education and development involved this idea of strategic thinking,
Uh,
right? That something about your parents modeling for you or guiding you, or something, some lesson in life said to you, if you want to get to X, you have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So you knew you wanted to get to that one goal, and so you lined up all these things, starting from when you're like a teen.
yeah.
What did your parents show you? What is that?
I think the biggest thing they showed me And I absolutely positively love my parents. And I think the biggest gift they gave me, beyond life, was the gift of reading and the love
Mm.
of reading, because that
Hmm.
opens so many more worlds to you, so many more possibilities and universes. And so, from a very young age, I might ask for a bike, or I might want cowboy boots or something, and
Mm.
often that answer was no. But if I wanted to go to the library, that answer was almost always yes. And
Mm.
if I wanted a book, that answer was almost always yes.
Mm.
So, yeah, they gave me the gift of a love of reading, and I think that is what drove me to learn more and more, because I discovered the early masters of science fiction, Asimov, Heinlein, and Clarke, and
Yeah.
they just really, really opened my perception to what was possible in life, even if it wasn't possible yet.
Okay. With the first Falcon, I said, let's go back to that moment. So look at this photograph. As you're speaking, giving me this life lesson, let's go back to that day. Do you remember that particular flight? Or is that it just kind of always had that rig on the back, and this particular flight
No,
doesn't really stand out because there's so many of them?
yeah, there's plenty of flights, but this aircraft, the tail number 120, was used primarily for engine testing. So I spent a lot of time in that
Okay.
aircraft testing new engines. So
Oh, wow.
a lot of time going up and deliberately shutting down the only engine on my airplane and
Oh,
trying to get
wow.
it restarted. So this was a little unusual when we put the spin chute on it and started using it for what we called performance and flying qualities testing and high angle of attack testing. So I don't remember the particulars of this flight, but it was always okay. What if you have an asymmetric load? What if you have, we've got a couple of missiles on the left wing,
Yeah.
and it looks like maybe a Maverick air to ground missile inboard of that. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the things that always comes up is, an airplane like this, you generally launch one weapon at a time or deploy one weapon at a time. So
Mm.
even if you're loaded symmetrically at takeoff, you're going to end up
Yeah.
being asymmetric,
Asymmetric. Yeah.
yeah, somewhere in the flight. So this particular flight, I don't remember if it was this very flight or if it was another one during the program. But this was one of the scariest things that ever happened to
Oh,
me. Um,
okay.
because we would do inverted departure testing. And so for this, you would go up to about 40,000 feet, you would roll upside down, and then you would
Hmm.
push forward so that you would be as close to minus 1G as possible. And
Okay.
then you would slam the stick all the way one way and stomp on the rudder all the way, and you would intentionally put the airplane out of control.
Right.
And
Wow.
so there I am. And in the F-16, it's like being on the front of an airplane. You don't really see the wings or anything else. You
Yep.
feel almost
Yep.
like Superman out
And you're
there.
super
And
high as well, right?
yeah, yeah. And so, yep, the airplane goes out of control just as planned. And uh, I'm trying to do my recovery techniques, doing the appropriate switches, the appropriate movements of the stick and the rudders, and all of this. All I'm seeing is blue sky
Oh, wow. Yeah.
because I'm upside down on my back, and I can't really tell which way I'm rotating. And it's
Hmm.
important
Hmm.
to know that because we've got this little extended flight test nose boom, and had I been aware enough at the time to really pay attention to that, it would have solved my problems. But it takes me a while, and it's not coming out of the spin. And so finally, I get it to where the aircraft is going nose to earth, and then the nose just keeps coming back up again. So now I'm right side
Okay.
up, but I'm out of control, but this time I'm right side up. And then it was like the world reoriented around me. I could see the
Hmm.
ground, I could see which way I was turning, and I recovered. But I had a few moments there where I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to do the walk of shame. I'm going to have to punch the big red button
Right, right,
and
right, right,
and then
right, right.
explain why there's some spin chute landing over, California City, California. Um,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and so it's always better to leave with all the stuff you had on board when you
Oh
took
man.
off. So
Oh Pat. You've just you deliver. Oh man, this is crazy. This is amazing. I'm 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 awestruck by the opportunity and the amazement because for me, like for you, it's discrete moments and decision
uh,
moments that say, okay, I have to do this now, and then I have to do that, and you get there. Kind of like when speaking to a famous singer or whatever, we notice the result, and
uh,
that's what I'm looking at now, and not necessarily the work of getting there,
yeah.
which of course up and down and up and down. So what was just a quick story of a time on that journey where you fell on your face?
Oh, there are probably several.
Because
Uh,
failures are as much a part of success. You know what I mean? Like falling back a few steps is as much a part of growing. You know?
yeah,
So is there one lesson that really stands out that you said, well, dude, that really taught me don't go that direction?
yeah, yeah. And I think it was in the same airplane. We were doing a thing called loads testing, which is you have a specific things loaded on the airplane, stores, weapons, missiles, and you have to hit exact altitudes and airspeeds. And then you have this fairly complicated maneuver that you do where you roll to 90 degrees, you pull, then you bank again, you put rudder doublets in, and it was so complicated that generally they had that testing done at a different place at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida because
Okay.
that was something those guys did all the time. And so they got very
Right.
good at it. But for whatever reason, we're going to do it at Edwards with this load. And and I remember that day we were doing a lot of supersonic test points. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a lot of go really fast, do the maneuver, and then have the control room say, yeah, we need to do that again. So I would
Okay.
have to go hit the tanker, air refuel, go back, do it all again. And, depending on the kind of flight, there have been flights where I've accomplished 100 test points. On this
Okay.
particular flight, I only even attempted 13.
Okay.
And on the 13th, I managed to both overspeed and over G the aircraft.
Mm.
And it was
Okay.
all because I goofed up my switches in the cockpit. I didn't have things set up correctly. And then the overspeeding thing was always surprising to me. And I've used this as an example of a thing called attentional blindness since then.
Okay.
But in the heads up display that you're looking through, you have Mach number, and right
Mm-hmm.
below it is G's, the
Yeah.
the load factor you're putting on the aircraft. And two things happened. One was I wasn't paying attention to the fact that at some point the airplane becomes limited by airspeed rather than Mach number, which is a little bit different and not something we need to spend a lot of time on. But the point is, I gooned that up.
Mm.
And I was 20 knots faster than I should have been, 20 knots beyond the design limit of the aircraft.
Oh
Uh,
wow, wow.
yeah, and
Which doesn't sound like much to me. Like to me, to an outsider, 20. It's like okay, so you're going 140 instead of 120. Okay, but what does that mean in relative terms? Like just 20 knots. Like was that really pushing the limit?
Yeah, it was going beyond the limit. In fact, the cardinal sin among test pilots is to break a limit. And
Well, okay.
if the airspeed limit, like on the F-16, was 800 knots,
Mm.
you were allowed to do a test point from 780 to 800. You were not
Okay, okay.
ever to get to 801
Mm.
because bad
Right.
things can happen. The
Yeah.
smart guys that design the airplanes design them for that to be the worst case, and if you start going
Right.
beyond the
Right.
worst case, yeah. So I overspeed the airplane, and then when I roll into my turn and I pull full aft on the stick, I'm suddenly losing all sorts of airspeed, and I knew the maneuver was not going to be good.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And just because it didn't feel right, and I come out of it and recover and talking to the control room, and they're saying, yeah, we're going to need to do that again. And that's when I finally noticed that on a maneuver where I was not supposed to exceed 5 Gs, I had gotten
Mm.
to 7.9. And even more than the speed, how many G's you're pulling
Yeah.
can kill you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we knocked it off. I came back, I landed, and then you have the really uncomfortable meeting with your boss,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he calls me in, and we have this really collegial conversation about, well,
Hmm.
what did you learn? And
You fucked up, brother.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And he could have set me down.
Yeah.
He could have said, no, you need to think about this a while, and you have to go on the tour of shame or something.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
what he asked me to do was he asked me to talk to all the other F-16 test pilots and tell them about my path to that mistake.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a little cathartic, but it was also a little embarrassing at the same time.
But everybody learns, right?
Yeah.
That's how you all learn.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the my client for the past 15 years was a guy who helped co-found DHL International in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And so DHL, for the people who know the company, do really incredible things.
Yeah.
And one of the things in their culture, in terms of service leadership and what I sort of teach professionally, is this idea that anybody can make a mistake, right? Anybody can make a mistake so long as you talk about it,
Yeah.
so long as everybody learns together. So when you're telling me this, I mean, your boss had a good idea, good inkling of, okay, well, you screwed up. Now you have to tell everybody so you can all sort of laugh about it around the cooler and then go, okay, let's move on.
Yep. And I love that philosophy that when you mess up, you should fess up,
Yep, yep,
because that way everybody gets better.
for sure, for sure. Let's move on to the next photo, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, I can't even imagine what I'm gonna get. Great. It's called Moses Lake Mule Deer by Pat Daly. Okay, so it's a photo of it's not super sharp, but it's a photo of so it must be very far away. I'm assuming you made this photo,
Yep.
but it's an afternoon light. It's kind of arid ground. There's this yes, it must be kind of desert kind of ground because it's quite arid. There's a tree in the foreground, kind of pine, and then another tree that's more deciduous. And behind it, you've got this brush. It could be sage or something. And what makes the photo is, I guess, a Moses mule deer, Moses Lake mule deer. No, sorry. So it's not a Moses mule deer. It's a mule deer in Moses Lake.
Yep.
And is it have antlers yet, or I don't know? It looks
It-
pretty young.
yeah.
Maybe it's a female, but
If you look close enough, you can just see the little buds of the
yep.
antlers. So it's a young buck, or it's early in spring, so they're just
Okay.
starting to grow their antlers.
Yeah, like tell me the story. This is amazing. But wait, hold on. I can just see at the bottom just at the bottom of the frame, you can just see something man-made. It looks like a thing that it could be a fence post or something. Like it does not look natural in the sense that it's been constructed. So this looks like, I'm gonna guess, a backyard of some
Yep,
sort.
absolutely. Well done.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so I'm using my eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, so so what's this, Matt? What's the story?
Okay, so in 2018, I got offered a job from Mitsubishi Aircraft Corporation to come up and work with them. They were, at the time, they were trying to develop a new regional aircraft, and it was called the MRJ for Mitsubishi Regional Jet, and then later they rebranded it to Space Jet. Not because it went into space, but because the way they built the airplane gave passengers more space internally.
Okay,
Uh,
right.
so they were doing all their flight tests up in Moses Lake. So
Okay.
we got the opportunity to move to Moses Lake, which is right smack in the geographic center of the state of Washington, which is in the northwest corner of the continental United States. And
Yep.
it is, as you picked up on, it's a very arid climate. Most people, when they
Mm.
think of Washington State, they think of Seattle and lots of
The
green
coast. Yeah.
trees, and yeah,
Yep.
but this is on the other side of the mountains. Uh, and if you
It's a
look at
high desert, right?
yeah, it's high desert. It's not. It's only about 1,600 feet, so it's not terribly high, but it's relatively flat and
Mm-hmm.
very agricultural. But
Okay.
we found this house that backed up to this. Whenever they got enough rain, it was considered wetlands, so
Mm-hmm.
nobody could develop there, and it sat kind of in this bowl. And we were at the bottom of the bowl, and this is kind of looking up. And there was a herd of these mule deer that lived mostly in the bowl. They would wander
Fun.
out from time to time, but it was big enough, probably a mile end to end, half a mile wide, where they could, forage and, you know, for the people who lived there, that meant that they also foraged on your plants.
Right.
And came into
Right.
your yard and grazed on
Yeah.
your grass, and um, we absolutely loved it. The environment, we had lived in Houston prior to that, and when we moved up to Moses Lake, the thing that hit us first and foremost was how quiet it
Ah,
was.
nice.
And
Nice.
uh, one morning, I'm walking my dogs, and the loudest sound I hear is one of these deer crossing the road behind me. Just the soft little clip,
Oh,
clop, clip,
wow.
clop.
So nice.
Yeah, yeah. So we love getting out in nature and doing stuff like that. And like I said before, we're big into our animals. So we would have these guys come and uh, forage on our shrubbery and things like that, and it was always really nice.
So you always had dogs?
Always.
Okay. And what's the largest pack you've had?
Uh, we actually had three at one point, but
Yeah.
mostly it's been two.
Right. Got it. Okay. So there, as a person who has dogs, and the largest I've had was six.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
you know that well, just like the falcon in the first photograph, and each dog that you have, and the mule deer, if you spent enough time with them, you start making a connection on how they see the world, and well, it's not only see the world, but how they interact,
Yeah.
and sort of. So, for example, one of our dogs was lost for a week, and then they said, and the sort of the advice we were given was tie a used stinky sock to a place where you think the dog might be, because it will smell that and it'll be very comforting, and it'll probably hang around there. So that's what we did, and it worked. just to kind of drive the idea of how the dog's sense of smell really is its kind of interface with the world. So with all these words up in the air now in your head, how about you connect that to the mule deer, to your dogs, to seeing the world, your interface, what it's like to be a pilot. Take it from there.
Okay. That's a lot.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Both mule deer and dogs are happiest in a pack.
Okay.
They like to be surrounded by other animals, other family members, and for dogs, we get identified as part of their pack, so they're happy
Yep.
to be with
Yep.
us. And I think the difference, well, the similarities with that and being a pilot is that your pack expands a little bit. And when you're doing test pilot stuff, you're often by yourself. I mean, the photo I showed you earlier just happened to have a photo chase along for the purpose of taking the pictures. But oftentimes you're by yourself, and you could go out and do a test mission and then come back and turn the data over to somebody. But mostly you're connected to your flight test pack through your radios. And so you develop a pretty good rapport with the folks that are working in the control room. And you learn that like, I've almost always had an old dog and a younger dog at the same time.
Okay.
And the older dogs have the benefit of wisdom, and the younger dogs have the benefit of the sharper senses. So, the old dog knows when it's time to turn around and don't go too close to that edge or don't go too close to that deer. And the young dog is much better at picking up the fact that there are deer or snake or something in the vicinity that you can potentially hurt you or the dogs. So I think it was Rudyard Kipling said, "The strength of the wolf is the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf." And I think we all get to the point where we learn that is true, and that he said it far better than I ever could, but that you get a lot of your strength and ability from those around you, from those that support you. And in turn, you lend them your strength in the ways and at the times that it's appropriate.
You did it. You managed to take my absolutely random, ridiculous question and turn it into a beautiful lesson. Bravo, sir. Bravo. I love it.
Thank you.
Would you like to add anything else about this particular image, or would you like to go to the next photo?
No, that was. I guess the answer is yes, because I said no and then started talking right away. This was taken from our back door, looking through the glass, because we learned fairly quickly that if you open the door, then the deer tend to bolt off. But if you stayed behind the glass, then you could get some pretty decent photos. And this is nice. This was one of them. Yeah,
that's great. I love it. Oh, Pat. Okay, let's go to the next photo. Hey, wait a second. Okay, wait a second. Now, I have a feeling you did not make this photograph.
I did not take this photograph.
But I do remember how the conversation started about you saying the vision was to be an astronaut.
Yep.
Am I speaking to an astronaut right now?
No. Okay. You're speaking to a guy who did his best to become one and didn't make it.
But that's right. That's perfect. Okay, so the photograph is it must be a composite image, or not composite. It must be it's not a true photo.
Yeah, it is.
It is a true photo.
Yeah.
Okay. It's called Mars Mariner Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a photo of Mars, I'm assuming.
Yep.
And taken from, what would you say, like 100 miles from the surface of in altitude, or more than that? Probably
Yeah,
more than that.
probably more than that to be able
Yeah.
to get
Okay.
the full disk of
Yeah.
the planet in there.
Okay. Walk us through this, because I have so many. My forehead is really kind of crinkled. Okay, what are we? What's happening here, man?
Okay,
I love it.
so Mars, in terms of climate and size and gravity and everything, is the next most inhabitable planet in our solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular, if you look at that, what looks like a scar on the face of the planet,
Mm-hmm.
that is Mariner Valley. Now, just to give you a sense of scale, from the left edge to the right edge of that valley is about the same distance as from the east coast to the west coast of the United States or
Okay.
the continent of Australia.
Right.
So this is a big valley we're talking
Feature. Yeah,
about
it's
here.
humongous feature. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's about 4,000 kilometers long and it's about 7 kilometers deep. And it has the
Okay.
benefit of running east and west, Mars east and west. So the rotation of Mars gives that valley a normal amount of sunlight. And
Okay.
the depth of the valley means that the pressure at the floor of the valley is higher. The atmospheric pressure is
Yeah.
higher. And I think it's going to be one of the most likely colonization spots for humans when we get to Mars.
What? Okay, for me, it's 6:30 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
What are you doing to my head? I love this. Like, what? I had no idea this is going to be. You brought me to Mars. I love it. Okay, keep going. Keep
All
going.
right. Yeah. So Mariner Valley, and then I love Mariner Valley so much and its potential for humans so much that I wove it into a big chunk of the story in my book. And a lot of the action takes place in Mariner Valley. So, so yeah, I just took a couple of things that I liked and slammed them all together and thought this was the perfect picture.
It is absolutely the perfect picture. It's unreal, right? It's too real. It blows your mind.
Uh-huh.
I know where to look at in the sky at night and say, okay, that's Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's astounding to think that people have been able to use our thumbs and our ability to abstract to send things up there.
Yeah.
And to me, in terms of my own development, it's as astounding that we're having this conversation and my head's exploding from and then you say, and then there's my book. Okay, so you wrote a book. What's the title? Let's put that in people's brains. What's the
Okay.
title of your book? Sell it.
Title of the book is Spark.
Spark. Yeah, nice. So talk about your book, man. Like, sell it. Like, okay. So how long? When did you finish? When did it publish?
It came out May 29th of last year.
Okay. So pretty recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it your first book, or have you written other books?
Yeah, my first book.
Oh, well done. Well done.
No, thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. So talk about talk about your book, man.
Okay. So the whole genesis of this book began. Now I have kids. You have kids. You have kids, right? Or is it the
one
40 kids?
One daughter, 11 pets. So 12.
Very good. Yeah. So yeah, I'm at 2 daughters and 4 pets right now.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, both of my daughters were very much into a game called Pokemon Go.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with it or not.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for those that aren't, what Pokemon Go does in terms of the way it manifests is it takes the Pokemon and it projects this virtual construct onto a real background. So
Mm-hmm.
you can see Squirtle or, you know, one of the Pokemon there, and it looks like it's hanging out in the school playground.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you can tell that it's obviously a cartoon and virtual, I loved the idea of projecting the virtual upon the real. And so that started me thinking about virtual reality. And one of the problems with virtual reality is that it takes you out of reality. You are completely
Mm-hmm.
cut off from what is really around you. And so if you play a virtual reality game, you're in danger of knocking your TV off the stand,
Right.
stepping on the cat, all sorts of things because you've been separated from reality.
Right.
And that got me to do a little research into a thing called augmented reality, which is really what Pokemon Go is that it blends reality and the virtual. And I started thinking, what if, what if you could have a theme park, a Disneyland, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
where you could blend these two things? And so the title of the book, Spark, is an acronym for Solar Prime Augmented Reality Park. And
Okay.
it's a place for gamers of all ages, and it pulls solar power into it because when I lived, when I was test pilot out in California, we would fly past a thing called Solar One almost every
Mm-hmm.
day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this consolidated solar thermal power plant. It has this
Must be
big
huge.
circular array of mirrors and it reflects the sunlight up onto a tall tower and it
Yep.
heats up molten salt and then it uses that heat to generate steam to power a turbine and voila, we have electricity. But it's so inefficient.
Okay.
And so there's another way to generate solar electricity or solar power, and that's through photovoltaic panels. It's like what you see on
Yep.
the space station or satellites or on the roof of somebody's house down the street.
Yeah.
And they are much better in terms of both efficiency and also they're more environmentally friendly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems with these mirror arrays is have you ever walked in the reflected sunlight of a high-rise building?
Yep. Yeah.
And
That fries everything. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and you get pretty warm pretty quickly. And so now
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
think about all these mirrors focusing on one small region of space. And unfortunately, there's no warning sign for the birds.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
so,
right.
so birds, they can see the bright thing over there, so they're not going to fly into that. But,
Yeah.
there's nothing in the bird's brain that says, yeah, not only don't fly near it, into it, don't fly anywhere near it
Sure.
because you're going to
You
go
get
through this.
toasted.
Yeah, you're going to get toasted. And the birds ignite almost like that
Oh,
and they
dude.
fall to earth, with their feathers smoking. And it's, yeah, so anyway, that's kind of a long dissertation on solar power, but that's why I'm a bigger advocate of photovoltaic solar power than I am
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
consolidated thermal systems.
Yeah. Okay. So Spark, your book, is a novel or it's
Yeah, it's a science fiction novel.
okay. But why is Mars the kind of the territory? So you didn't explain the augmented reality, but how does in the park and how does that relate to Mars?
Okay, all right. So this park, gamers like to do quests,
Yeah.
and one of the quests that I created for this book was called War on Mars. And so it
Mm-hmm.
takes place on a virtual Mars in a virtual
Ah.
Mariner Valley. And and so that's how the two marry up there.
Okay. Got it. Got it. People can get Spark from where? From how do people who are inspired by you learn more about you, find your book, all that
Okay.
stuff?
Well, the book's available on Amazon. I mean, everything's on Amazon these days. So,
Sure.
you
Sure.
get hard copies.
This
You can get
podcast is on Amazon.
this podcast. Yeah. So, perfect.
Everything's on Amazon.
It is. It is. It's really surprising. It is the most surprising mega company that the world has ever seen.
No, it is. It is quite astounding. Okay, so the book is okay. So is there an age demographic? Is there like so when you go to give a talk about your book, how do you present it?
I come at it from a couple of ways. One, I wanted to write a book that I thought would be family friendly. Uh,
Okay.
I wanted kids to be able to read it. I wanted parents to be able to buy it for their kids and not worry about anything that's happening in it. So I targeted it so it would be classified as a young adult book, which means that I keep
Mm-hmm.
most of the profanity out, most of the there is romance, but there's no explicit sex in the book,
Sure. Sure.
uh,
Yep.
and and then the violence is dealt with at a little bit of an arm's length
Got it.
distance, and then kind of the quick way to talk about it. I say it's got a Ready Player One vibe. If for those that have read Ernest Cline's Ready Player One,
Yeah.
kind of meets Ender's Game, which is an Orson Scott Card book. And then one of my readers said, "Yeah, it's those two, but also plus Peter Pan." So there's a little bit
Okay.
of the Lost Boys and
Right. Right. Right.
kids separated from adults, and maybe even throw a Lord of the Flies aspect in there just to round it out.
Okay. Wow, Pat. Wow. Amazing. I mean, what a tour you've taken me on. I love it. I love it. Uh, this is great. This is really great. I guess at this point, I just to say thank you, thank you. So look, already it's been an hour, right?
Yeah.
It goes by very quickly. And thank you for the stories, man. That's amazing. You have another fan with with total guy crush. Wow, woo, for sure. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Great, thanks. So next time you're in Hong Kong, or next time I'm, anyways, maybe our paths will cross. You're a good man. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd love to get together with you and maybe, bend the elbow, have a beer.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it